We've been hearing a lot about Mars in the news.
Yeah, NASA keeps coming out with announcements every year.
We just found out that there's water on Mars, liquid water.
Yes, recently they revealed that there's evidence of liquid water.
That's crazy.
Last year they announced that they definitely found ice, solid water, in the soil. In the soil on Mars' surface, they found frozen water. Now they found evidence of liquid water flowing.
Wow. Do you think people can go to Mars? Do you think we should send people to Mars?
I definitely think we can go there. We've already sent a number of spacecraft to Mars, starting with satellites many decades ago. Then there were landers, where a satellite landed on the surface and sent data back to Earth. Then we sent the rovers, little robot cars that drive around on Mars. So we've already successfully sent many missions to Mars. I'm sure we could do one with humans.
But none of the satellites or landers or rovers, they've never come back. Do you think we could send people and they'd come back safely?
Well, that is a problem. We could definitely send people to Mars, but bringing them back, having the astronauts come back to Earth, would be a much more difficult problem to solve.
So you think maybe we would send astronauts to Mars and they would never come back safely?
Well, if you think about the old explorers in the olden days, explorers used to leave their home and find new regions and not plan to go back.
Yeah.
People used to take a risk that maybe they couldn't return. So I think there are people who are willing to go on a one-way trip to Mars. I'm sure there are people willing to do that. But are the rest of the people willing to send someone on that mission? I think some people will say yes, and some people will say no. I don't know what the percent would be, but I'm willing to allow someone to do that. If someone says, I want to go to Mars, I know it's a one-way trip, but I want to go. I think that's okay. We should let them go.
How about you? Would you volunteer to go?
Oh no, not me. I'm staying here on Earth.
Okay.
So what are 3 foods that you absolutely have to have, that you can't live without?
I would say that I couldn't live without arepa. It's like my daily breakfast in Venezuela. Arepa is made of corn flour, and it looks like a hamburger, so you put anything you want inside, and it's very tasty. And I would say like 95% of Venezuelans eat arepas every day. Well, it's kind of like a high carb diet in my country, so I need rice also for lunch. And bread. Bread is another thing. In the afternoon, a piece of bread, sweet bread with coffee is kind of like mandatory.
So lots and lots of carbs in your diet.
What about you? What about in England?
Well, English breakfast is not the healthiest of breakfasts. It's like a big plate with fried eggs, fried sausages, hash browns, like hashed potatoes, beans, just everything fried and everything delicious. And I would say that I can't live without that, but if I ate it every day, then I would probably not be able to leave my house because I would be so, so fat. But it's definitely a food that is in my top foods of all time. That's probably my favorite. But recently I've been eating lots of tofu as breakfast. Yeah, so a little bit of tofu, a little bit of soy sauce just for breakfast, which is just, it's a bit of a boring breakfast, but it's really healthy, I guess. So I've been eating that a lot every day. So I probably can't live without that recently. And also pizza. Pizza.
Oh, pizza, yes.
Pizza. I think
Very
everyone
good.
can't live without pizza.
Yes.
Pizza is the best. Pizza is definitely a
Yeah,
food
I
that I
try
can't
to
live
have
without.
pizza probably once a week, I would say. Yeah.
What's your favorite
It's-
topping?
That would be cheese.
Cheese, classic.
Definitely. Bacon.
Cheese and bacon. Oh, that sounds good.
Yes. Very, very tasty.
Just
Yeah.
cheese and bacon or anything
No,
else?
no. I'm going for anything actually, but I will always need to have cheese and bacon on my pizza.
Pizza's not
Yes.
pizza without cheese.
Yes.
Has to have
Yes.
cheese.
Now,
Oh.
what else do you have? So you said tofu, pizza. What other food can you live without?
Well, my grandma is part Italian, so we have lots of like pasta and lasagna in our family.
Good.
So I try not to eat a lot of pasta because I'll get really fat, but pasta is definitely something that I can't live without.
Yeah, Italian
So
food,
good.
so good.
Yeah. And again, lots of cheese.
Yeah. We also do a lot of lasagna. Well, we call it pasticcio.
Pasticcio.
It's a different name, but it's the same lasagna, and it's also very tasty.
So
yeah.
good.
But
So like a
high-carb
real
food.
real comfort food, isn't it? Lasagna.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So, what would you say is your comfort food?
My comfort food. That would be arepa again. Yeah, definitely.
You said you can have lots of like fillings in that.
Yes. So my favorite would be black beans with cheese inside. It sounds a little bit like a mix-up of things, but it's really, really tasty. We do eat a lot of black beans every day in Venezuela. Yeah, it's very common. What about you?
My comfort food, I can't eat it as much as I would like to these days, but it's probably my mom's spaghetti bolognese. So good. It's so good. Like lots of pasta, lots of tomato, lots of herbs, lots of cheese.
Sounds good.
Ah, it's amazing. I would like live with my parents if it meant I could have spaghetti bolognese every day. So good, so tasty. Ah, but yeah, it's the best.
Nice.
It's the best. So we're talking about going local as we're in a different country. How much of the local culture do you absorb? How much like local, because we both live in Japan, right?
Yes.
How much in percentage, for example? How much Japanese food would you say you eat?
Oh, I would say like probably 80% of
That's
my
a lot.
food is Japanese food. Yeah, I like it because most of it is healthy and it's actually what I can get in the cafeteria at work. So, yeah,
It's convenient.
it's convenient. What about you?
Well, I mostly make my own food, and Japanese food is really difficult to make, I think. I'm really challenged when it comes to cooking anyway. I'm really bad at cooking. And to have to try and learn a new style of cooking is just too much for me. I'm really lazy. So I would probably say if I'm cooking food myself, I never cook Japanese food. 0% of the time. I never. But if I go to a restaurant, then sure I can eat some Japanese food sometimes.
I sometimes watch the TV and learn how to cook Japanese food. There are some easy recipes. Do you ever watch the Japanese television? There's
I
tons of.
try, but yeah, like you said, it's a lot of cooking programs.
There's a lot of. That was what I'm about to say. That
Yeah.
tons of cooking TV shows, programs.
Yeah, and I watch cooking programs and I just get angry that I can't cook. I can't do it like that, so I just get frustrated, so I stop watching.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
What about other kinds of shows? So like not just cooking shows.
Well, they have. I guess they have pretty funny shows, but I don't understand. what they're saying, but I try to follow them, and yeah, sometimes they're very interesting. They also talk about clothing season, what's trending in Japan, what young people are doing. They have some interviews sometimes, very interesting interviews, and they're always teaching you something. So it's something that I like about Japanese TV. You're always learning something from other countries as well.
That's true. So how about like your friendship circles? How much percentage of your friends would you say are Japanese versus international?
Oh, I would say probably 40% are Japanese. Yeah, the rest of them are international people because I work with international people, so I spend most of the time with them.
And when you're with your Japanese friends, do you speak mostly in English or mostly in Japanese?
Oh, I would say like probably 70% Japanese and the rest would be English because normally when they know a second language is English, not Spanish. So I like 0% Spanish with Japanese, but like I would say 70% of the conversation is in Japanese, also because I want to practice my Japanese.
Right.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'd say out of my friends, recently I've had like no time to socialize. So probably about 30% of my friends are Japanese. But when I speak with them, it's mostly in Japanese. I don't like speaking in English.
Oh.
It's just like probably for the same reasons as you. Like I want to practice my Japanese.
But I would say that from my Japanese friends, like most of them, probably like 80% of them always want to speak in English because they want to practice English too. So it's like a give and take. Like we speak a little bit in Japanese, but sometimes we speak more in English.
Yeah.
It depends also the topic and what you're talking about.
If it's a topic you can talk about, then go for it in Japanese. But if it's a difficult topic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, Gilder, we're both teachers and we both live and work abroad, right, from our home countries. I'm from Scotland and you're from Venezuela. So, I'm sure we both have to deal with homesickness because we're so far from our home. How do you deal with homesickness?
Oh, it's very difficult because, as you said, I'm so far from my country.
Yeah.
And like special seasons like Christmas or during the Holy Week is something that we celebrate a lot. I feel really homesick, especially because of the food we have. Particular food and also meeting with your friends, hanging out with them, going to the beach. So all those things that I don't have here is it really makes me feel homesick. But one thing I do is I always try to go for things in the country where I'm living. So what do the locals do? Is there any interesting? And it's a sort of like an adventure because you're doing something new, so you're kind of replacing something that you're used to do by something new. So in a way, it's nice dealing with homesickness.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. You said replacing. I was going to say just distract yourself with other activities. Obviously, we've met new people living here, and I've made some new and wonderful friends. And it's not the same as your life back home, but it's a good distraction, I think. You mentioned activities, so just exploring the new culture that we're in, and if feeling homesickness. In regards to food, there's a lot of delicious food here in Japan, delicious food, so we can distract our needs, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of the good things of being in Japan is the fact that you get to know people from all over the world and try so many different things. So it's a distraction, a good distraction.
One strategy I have as well for homesickness is whenever someone comes to visit, which is very rare, but it does happen, I send them a list of things that they can fill their suitcase with to bring over for me. Foods from home,
Yes.
and just tea bags from the local supermarket, and some cosmetics or toiletries that I cannot buy here, particular brands that I like, and it's little things like that that help me, I think, deal with not having them. Basically, having them, that helps me deal with not having them.
I also do that sometimes. Like, my family try to visit me once a year, so their suitcase packed of stuff from Venezuela, which is very important for me. And also, I try to find those supermarkets from South America, like Brazilian supermarkets.
Right, yeah.
Or sometimes the Filipino supermarkets, they have stuff that we have in
Yes,
Venezuela.
yes.
So, yeah, it's very nice.
I actually used to live up in a different part of Japan where there was quite a large Brazilian population, and there were many, like a Brazilian convenience store.
Yes.
Wonderful bread. The meat was good too. Yeah, lots of really good products. So I guess a shop like that would help you in particular.
Yes, I guess Brazilians, they don't have the same issue that we have with homesickness, because they can get a lot of stuff from Brazil here in Japan.
True. Yeah. Well, of course, there are international stores around. I'm lucky enough to, even in a small city like this, I have an international store that's reasonably close. So there are a few products that I feel happy about, I guess. Maybe I wouldn't even buy them at home, but when I see them in the shop here, I feel like, oh, I can't get other things, so I'm going to buy these biscuits.
Likewise, something that you can read.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Just peel the language sticker off the top and read the English below. Yeah, there are different ways to cope with it, I think.
Yes.
So, Monica, you actually are a trained physical education teacher.
Yes, that's right.
So we often hear about how kids today are not fit and they don't exercise enough. Do you think that's true?
I think it is true, yes. I think kids these days spend a lot more time on the computer than they used to. So, of course, that means less time outside and getting fit.
Now, in some countries, there's a big debate about how much fitness kids actually do in school. So in your country, in New Zealand, do kids still do a lot of fitness actually in school?
Well, reasonably recently, the PE curriculum got amalgamated with the health curriculum. So PE and health were considered to be important in school. And the health side of the curriculum is often taught in the classroom, and of course the PE side is often taught outside the classroom. And there is always debate about how much kids should be doing inside school. In fact, very recently, now that it has become quite a big problem in New Zealand for teenagers, there has been talk about increasing the number of PE lessons that students have, but the current Prime Minister, I think, believes that the emphasis should be put on out-of-school activities like clubs and encouraging students to become more involved in that side of things.
What do you feel? Do you think that it should be?
I actually agree, to be honest, because I think if you increase the number of PE lessons that students have in a week, it doesn't actually necessarily increase their motivation to be involved in physical activity. But if, like he's suggesting, you increase the opportunities outside of school, students maybe become involved in a sport that they choose, that they like to do, and they hopefully can take it on as a lifetime sport, which is important.
But wouldn't the counter argument be that only kids that actually have a natural inclination to play sports will want to join those clubs, and that the kids that are more sedentary or don't enjoy physical activity won't join a club, and so you need to actually make them do fitness in school?
Yeah, that's true. That is a counter argument, and a very good one
So I guess
to
there's
argue on some other occasion. Of course, I can talk about that side of the argument as well, if you want me to.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So, but basically, you say it's both sides make a good point. Okay. So, Clan, you're from Trinidad and Tobago, and you were saying that your country has a very diverse multicultural mix.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, sure. Trinidad and Tobago mostly were made up of people from Africa, African descent, who came as slaves, and Indians who came from India mostly. I think we also may have some from parts of Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. But they came as indentured laborers closer to when slavery was being abolished. And these two groups actually make up the two largest ethnic groups in Trinidad. However, there's a lot of mixing. It's very difficult to find someone in Trinidad and Tobago who is extremely purely of one ethnic group, because everyone is sort of mixed. We have also a lot of whites or Caucasians who are native to Trinidad and Tobago, who speak exactly like me with my Caribbean accent. And many people find it very strange because they will walk around in Trinidad and think that they're tourists, but realize that they're actually native Trinidadians. And many also come from Europe to settle in Trinidad after retirement and have their families here. So this is how they came to stay here. We have a very large Chinese population, and it's growing because now the government is encouraging immigrants from China to come in to help us with our development to build our capital city. So we have a lot of Chinese. We have a lot of Colombians, Venezuelans, people coming from South and Central America, migrating to Trinidad because Spanish is now being promoted as a second language for Trinidad. So street signs in our capital city are in English and Spanish. So with all of this mixing of different people, it's very, as I said, very difficult to find one person who is of just one ethnic group. And it's reflected in our food, it's reflected in the kind of music we listen to, sometimes in the way we dress. For me, for example, I'm mostly of African descent, but my dad is mixed with people from South American ethnicity and Chinese. So, as I said, although I am mostly African, everybody still has a little bit of something in them.
So I want to ask you about when is the right age to have stuff or to start doing stuff. What do you think is the right age to start having a phone?
Oh, I think for security reasons, to keep the child safe, perhaps maybe about 11 or 12, when they start going around places without their parents.
Yeah.
It would be a way for me to contact my daughter. Even now, my daughter's only 6 and she doesn't have a phone. And that's far too young, I believe. However, she walks to school by herself.
Yeah.
And walks home by herself. And that stresses me out for her safety. So there are times where I wish I could phone her or text her. But she doesn't have a phone. And I do believe that 6 is far too young to have a phone.
A little bit too young.
Yes. So purely for security reasons, I think probably around 11 or 12.
How old were you when you first got your phone?
Oh, well, I'm an old person, so, people didn't have mobile phones. I was reaching the end of high school. I was, I think, 17 when I got my first mobile phone. And it was a big brick. But again, that was for, I guess security reasons.
Yeah.
My parents got it for me. I was going out, I'd started going out at night, going to concerts, and I was beginning to be allowed going into bars and things, 17, 18. So, yeah, it was a good security thing. My parents were appreciative of being able to contact me.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? How old were you when you first got your mobile phone?
Oh, goodness. I was about 12 or 13. I was really young.
Okay.
And I only got my first mobile phone, or my first cell phone, because my best friend had got the same one. And I wanted to send like picture messages to her. It was back in the old days where you couldn't send photos, you couldn't take photos.
Picture messages. I couldn't even
messages.
send picture messages. Mine was just text, like pressing the same button over and over again.
Oh yeah. So I never really used it as like a way of security. I just used it to send really overpriced picture messages to my friend for absolutely no reason. It was such a waste. And to play Snake. Do you remember Snake?
Oh yeah,
like
Snake.
The little game that you could play on your phone.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't use it for a good use, I think. I just used it to waste time.
Fair enough. Well, you're 12, you said, right?
12, 13, yeah.
Well, that sounds age appropriate, I think. Age appropriate use.
Yeah, it's a good time to start wasting your time. Good age to start wasting time.
Yeah.
Is there any natural disasters which happen?
Yeah, there's plenty of natural disasters. Guam is actually right on the coast of a reef formation called the Marianas Trench. And underneath, in this trench, is the lowest part of the world, the deepest part of the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so if we joke about it, we joke that Guam's highest mountain, Mount Lam Lam, is actually the highest mountain in the world if you count off from its base, which is in the Marianas Trench, the lowest part of the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So there must be good diving if you talk about barrier reefs.
Yeah, there's plenty of good diving. It's got really great diving like you would find in Hawaii or in the Great Barrier Reef. And many tourists from all over Asia come to Guam to scuba dive because there are great spots, and it's the closest U.S. soil they can get to.
Ah, I see. But in Australia, in the Great Barrier Reefs, there's lots of dangerous animals. Is that the case in Guam as well? Or?
Well, actually, that's funny you should ask. There has been a recent article about a guy in Guam, a very young guy who was scuba diving, and he got stung by a lionfish.
Oh.
But that is the extent of the dangerous animals of Guam. You'd have to go out into the deep sea to find more dangerous animals. But I think the most dangerous ones we have are quite small. Things like the lionfish, which I just mentioned. He just got stung, but it wasn't anything terrible. We do have reef sharks, but they are not great white sharks, so they're quite small. And smaller poisonous things like triggerfish, those you just have to be careful about whenever you're scuba diving. But other than that, there's not much dangerous in the sea.
Great.
So, Shirley, we were talking about politics. How is the situation in your country?
Well, I'm pretty much an on-the-fence kind of person, and politics is not my forte. It's not something I like to get into a conversation about. So I'll just change the subject if that's all right. I'd like to tell you a bit about the United Kingdom. I'm from Scotland, and where is Scotland? I get this question so often. Is that in Norway? And is it a region of England? So just to clarify, it's pretty complicated, but in the United Kingdom, the UK, we have Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And then people know Great Britain.
Yes,
Okay.
so I do.
Great Britain is Scotland, England, and Wales. To give the country its full title, it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That's the full title for the UK or Great Britain or GB, or England is just one country within 4 that are united. It sounds really complicated.
But it is the biggest one, right?
England is the biggest country with a population of 40 million. Scotland's about 5 million. No, I correct myself. England is, I think, 49 million. Wales is about 2 million. Northern Ireland about 2 or 3 million. So in total, the whole of the United Kingdom is about 60 million population. How did that come about? Go back 300 years or more even. England and Wales united over 300 years ago, and then Scotland was invited to join the union between England and Wales. Scotland agreed with actually many conditions. For example, one of the conditions was the money, the value of the pound. In Scotland we have Bank of Scotland pounds, and in England it's Bank of England pounds. It's all the same sterling currency of the UK, just it's very difficult in England to spend any money that's got Bank of Scotland written on it, even though it's all the same money. Anyway, that's another issue. So 300 years ago Scotland joined the union between England and Wales to become Great Britain. And then I think early in the 1800s, that's when Ireland joined. Of course, now it's just Northern Ireland, and there's other history related to that. We could go on all day talking about how it became Northern Ireland. So when people think of the UK, they generally think the UK is England, but it's actually 4 countries. So.
Okay, Monica, we're going to debate winning in sports, especially for young people. So do you think that winning should be stressed with sports, with, let's say, high school athletes?
Well, it depends on the situation and what they're training for. But generally, I think that winning is overemphasized in sport. I think that participation is more important. Yeah.
Why would you say that?
Well, I think if you concentrate too much on winning, then the problem is if you don't win, you don't enjoy the sport. So the emphasis is shifted from enjoyment to basically results. So I think it can be quite damaging.
Right. Oh, I kind of agree with what you're saying. And actually, I played high school sports, and I was never very good. And I always wish I participated more than I did. But I actually think that the focus on winning in some ways is quite important, and that it does serve a good purpose to have a focus on winning rather than on participation. I think the main reason is because when you focus on winning, that drives everybody to be better. So if you want to win, if you want to be on the team, etc., you have to force yourself to be better, and it's the carrot on the end of the stick, and it makes people train harder, work harder. It sets a goal for them, and it kind of prepares them for life. That sometimes you fail, and sometimes you don't get what you want, and so that's why sports and the whole focus on winning is good, because it's exactly how life is in the real world.
I would tend to argue the other way and say that actually sport doesn't reflect life in terms of winning and losing. I mean, let's take a work situation. It's not about winning or losing. It's about cooperating with people that you work with. And so if you have had an upbringing where you've been in a sports team that has been overly competitive, you could transfer that competitiveness into a workplace, and it can be counterproductive because it may mean that you're just not very good at being a team player in a work environment.
That's actually a really good point. But you could also argue that actually, even a work environment is like sport, and that you have teamwork and you have to work together. And if you don't work together in a very productive way, maybe you'll be out of a job or your company won't be productive. So you need to have that instinct to continually drive to be better than other people. And it sounds really brutal, but I think that's just how business works.
Well, you're talking about work being business, but I mean, I'm a teacher, and it brings me to quite an interesting discussion that's taking place now in teaching, which is two different kind of political views, really, in terms of teachers, because people want high standards in terms of their teachers, and one idea is to rate teachers in comparison to other teachers and basically give the top teachers incentives so that they get paid more than teachers who aren't as good as them. But the counter argument to that is that it creates a really hostile environment in the workplace, and in a school where you really need teachers to work together, I'm not sure that that's the best way to go.
Yeah, well, that's another debate for another day. But,
is that a cop-out or what?